This is Short Hammer. It is the 10th of May, 2020, and this is Trading Zones. Now, if we look at the MES in one of our previous sessions, I think it was a few weeks ago, we mentioned that this looked like a janky head and shoulders, or should I say inverse head and shoulders is what we called it. Since that point, what we've seen is nothing but a nice little climb here, a pullback, didn't make a lower low than this area here, and now we're headed back to the upside. Now, if you're a bull, you want this 2967-ish area, 2970-ish area to pop, and you want to run here. So we'll see if that does happen, if that does occur. Let's broaden this out. Broaden these lines out a little bit. Let's zoom in here. We're not going to look at that other structure. So what you want is for us to leg to the upside through this area here, which is about the 2940s. Or is that 2938? But 2940s here, roughly. 2945, 2950, we got something. And then 2973. 2994, 3008, 3064, 3118s. That's what you want to see if you're bullish. You want this thing to go. If you're bearish, you don't want this area to break. You actually would rather that we either start to go down and break this area here and sell, or we hit this area, it's a brick wall, we roll over and we go back down. So to the downside, you're watching this 2938 area. Then below that, the 2914s, 2887, 2884, 2872. And you want this down in the 2851, 2833 area. You really want this area here to break eventually. The 27, it's like the 2750-ish area. You want this area to break and you want to sell. But don't deny what's going on in the market. What's going on in the market right now is we saw a horrible jobs report. We have, companies that really have no idea what the future looks like. And the Fed just pouring money into the market and doing everything that they can to keep things afloat, and the market's still going up. Coronavirus cases, they're still coming. And there's been no cure. There's been no vaccine. We're still going up. Don't fight the trend. If the trend is up, follow that trend up. If you want to put little pockets of whether you're playing options, puts, or you want to get short certain sectors, that's fine. But what you got to watch for is this trend, and we talked about it. It's just like when we were in the middle of the trade war, and the market just kept going up because bad news became good news because people expected interest rate cuts from the Fed. So right now, I'm not saying it's going to continue to go up. What I'm saying is listen to what the market is telling you. If the market is consistently going up as bad news is coming out, don't try to preempt that the market will go down on bad news. Wait for the reaction. If the market goes up, follow the trend. If the market goes down, follow the trend. But wait for the trend, wait for the reaction to the news. Don't try to preempt, oh, job numbers are bad, I'm getting short. You may get a slight pullback if you're scalping really quickly, but at the same time, watch to see what the reaction to that news is. Are we making new lows? So that's just my my 2 cents off my little soapbox. But watch this next week and see what we do. This is going to be very interesting to see if the bulls have the strength to drive us up, and if the bears want to get in front of that and push us back down. You got to kind of see where, as we hit these key levels, who has control of the momentum of the market. And we'll see what other news could come out. But sometimes there's almost like a fatigue in the market where the same news that used to cause a strong reaction or strong selling, the market begins to price in that negative news. So we'll see how that works or how that goes. And also the president is putting more, I won't call them cheerleaders, but people who are more supportive of a rapid reopening of the different state economies, to sort of temper the I'll say the medical influence on his coronavirus task force. So it does seem that he's putting people that are pro reopen and pro economy to sort of potentially change that narrative around the coronavirus task force. So we'll see how that goes. So that might be interesting. Let's move on to RTY. So if we're watching this, right, nice little push here. Then we did pull back. So what am I watching? So when we had this dip, we had a bounce from this area here, which is, looks like about the 1290-ish area. And we pulled back up here to about a 1370, excuse me, 1372-ish area. All right, that's cool. That's not really, so let's go here, right? So what we want to look at is when we went back, couldn't get through it, got here, we pushed up through this little bottom here, this little candle consolidate, well, not consolidation, but repeated test of this area, pushed up through that. And we pushed up near the high of the test of that area. We couldn't find buyers. We rolled back over, caught a bid on this lower consolidation area here. You see all through here, a lot of structure. Back up, holding structure with this dip. And we're trying to push back up to test this. If we pop this area, which is the 1374-ish area, we might see a rise up into this lower structure here around this 1416s above that into this 14, is that 50? It's like 53-ish. So this could be interesting, right? So just keep an eye on that. Let's see what we get here. But we see those dips here too into this 1453-ish area here. Boom, 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 boom. Here. And we'll see if we can get a buy to pop the 1350s. And if we get a run, we'll see. We'll see sort of how this market, as these different states are reopening, how the economy reacts to that, right? Because as these states reopen, people are going to be using oil. They're going to be using more fuel, more gas. Those prices may go back up. So we'll see. This could be interesting. So keep an eye on that to see if the bulls really start to run us up, and if the volume begins to increase. Just keep an eye on that. If we get slapped back down, then and we lose that momentum, I'll be watching these 13. Let me see, what's this level? 1252, 1215, maybe back to the 1178s and see if that holds. But to the upside, we just gave you those numbers, those levels to watch if we happen to climb through the 1350s, 1416s, 1450s, if we get strength up through into those areas. Okay, so here's Amazon. And if we look at Amazon, they did have a dip on earnings. But if we look at this structure here, look at this break, back test hold, and we got a leg up here into the 24s. Pull back, didn't quite pierce that. Buyer stepped in, pushed us back up. Pull back down here into this structure. Buyers are pushing us back up again. So what we want to see is, as long as we're staying above the 2250s, Do the buyers have the strength? Will the market be bullish? And will we have the momentum to get a squeeze through the top of the 24s? Or will tech be weak? And will we see selling and roll back over through the 2250s? For me, I'm just going to be watching Amazon to see which way she goes. If she pops the top, I will probably be long on any pullbacks. If we roll through these 2250s, I'll probably be short into the 2186. So these are the levels that I'm watching. Above where we are currently, we have the 2407, the 2450 area. Then we could pop the all-time highs and run. And below, we have the 2318s, 2291s, 2251s, and then below that, we could test the 2186s. So I'm just carefully watching this to see how this goes. Do we see strength and do we drive to the upside? Do we hold above the 2250s? We'll see. Next up is Netflix. And Netflix is interesting. We see that. Let me pull this back. Pull this back. Pull this back. Pull this back. Okay. So above the three, where are we? The three, is it here? The 384-ish area. Last time we were up here, look at these tops here, right around this 419-ish area, right? Okay. So once we drop below that, we couldn't really get back above those 84s. Look at all that time. Couldn't really get back above those areas, right? But we did pierce it here, and we did get back above that. The oxygen was thin. Then we had this breakout back test and rocket to the upside. Pull back, held this area, and push back to the upside. So what are we watching here? And what's this area? This is those lower 390s, 391, 394 area. And we saw how the oxygen was thin these last few times we tried to get through that area. But once we had this dip, once you regain those 384s, you want to look for some type of a springboard above that level. And what you see is on the back test, look at the strength of this candle. They try to rip us through there, leaving no doubt the strength. The buyers left no doubt of the strength here. Pushed us above, back tested this area that previously was were these upper wicks where the sellers were smacking down those buyers. Those buyers told those sellers go for a walk and pushed us through. Tested that area again. Buyers drive us away from there. Came back down. Feather tested that here. Buyers drove us away from there. So where will we go next? We'll see. But these are some strong areas to watch. And to the upside, I'd watch if we can get through those 447s and if the buyers continue to drive us to the upside. And so right now, it looks like we're around those 435. So to the upside, we have the 439s, 447s. Then we can pop. Below this area, we have the, what's this? The 431s, 418s, it looks like, 410s, 405s. And then this 391 by 394 area, this little zone where the buyers have been letting the sellers know go for a walk. So for me, I'll watch to see which direction we go. And if we're bullish above the 439 area, I might be interested into the 447s. I'll be watching this carefully to see how this shapes up. But at the same time, if we dip below the 431s, that might open up these 418s. We just want to see, because if the market is strong and we continue to squeeze up, remember, a large reason why Netflix blew their earnings numbers out of the water was because so many people are quarantined in their home and they're watching Netflix, right? So if the country begins to open up and just globally we begin to open back up and people get back out there, those numbers should technically go down. So they should have less subscribers for the next quarter if the world is opening back up and less people are home watching Netflix. That will be my assumption. We'll see. So the assumption, if you're an investor in Netflix and we're here based on everybody's home, will there be more people home in the future? And on this spike, why didn't this spike hold? This was earnings. Why didn't this spike hold? Why didn't we continue to the upside? So this is just an interesting question. Not saying don't get heavy Netflix and bet it all, or not saying get short Netflix, but I just think that's an interesting thing that Netflix's numbers are incredibly high now. Is it possible that after a time of quarantine, that there could be more people at home in the future watching Netflix? Will there ever be a time where they have more potential eyeballs? I don't know. So let's move on. And NVDA, which has earnings coming up, looks like the 21st of May. So on the NVIDIA chart, we see this area, the all-time highs. We're headed back near that, heading to earnings. Not bad. And for those that took a run on this, on all the dips, you try to grab this as 30 days, roughly 30 to 45 days prior, get a run into earnings. But neither here nor there. Let's take a peek here. So we had some tops here. Boom, boom. And this is just like a swing wave high. And the wave here tapped it again, a little bit higher wave, and a pushback through, made a still higher low, higher high. We'll see if we pop the all-time highs prior to earnings and squeeze. That could be interesting, meaning that people may be trying to get as much juice out of the orange, figuratively, prior to earnings. So we'll see if they pop this top and run us into earnings. Not sure what their numbers will be, but this could be interesting. So just watching this, if you look at this above this 282 area, right? I'm just looking at this section. We are pushed up and testing all-time highs. So as long as we hold above these 282s, it's interesting that you do have that potential for a pattern repeat and a squeeze. That's just how I view things when I look at tickers like this. So we'll see if we pop the top here. We are back above those 282s. We couldn't do it here. We couldn't do it here. But right around this area, the buyer stepped in and tried to give us a run. So we'll see if we're able to do it here and pop the top above this 317-ish, 318-ish area. See if we get a squeeze above that and get a nice little run headed into earnings. We'll see. At the same time, if we back test here and we sell, then that could also mean something different where people are hopping out prior to earnings. So that could be interesting. We'll see. But this is looking a little bit strong. The overall market strength will help. Like if the futures are gapping up and ripping, that will help the overall market. Tech was pretty strong this week. There was sort of a fluctuation between put a bid under tech and a bid under financials. How the market kind of fluctuated as we tried to grind on up. So that might be interesting to see if tech remains strong and if we continue to drive to the upside. That could be interesting to watch. Next up is Facebook. So Facebook above these 210s, I think it's always interesting, above or below. This is what I call my swing door level, right around these 210s. And that's why I color this line a little bit differently. So above this, we see that the buyers did give us a nice little drive to the upside, topped out, came back below it, a little back test, a little bit of weakness. They bought it back up, and they're trying to catch a bid above this, like what they did here, and give us a drive through the top. But the sellers took back control, and that's sort of when we had all this, the coronavirus started to really spike. Look at this roll through. Well, I won't say spike, but it was a concern. And look at this roll through. And this gap down here, and we're in a drop. And then we bought back up. We see earnings here and saw the pop, the pullback, widen this out. So we'll see if we can get separation above these 210s and a drive back up here into the 220s. Or if this area is weak and we roll back through here and we see weakness and a dip back right around these 200 holes or 200 hole, I'll say. So this will be interesting on Facebook. They did release their Zoom competitor. Not sure how that is doing as far as signups, and we may not know for a bit of time. But remember, things are opening back up, so they may get a uptick on ad revenue, depending on as these phases go, depending upon companies spending to drive people to their offline or brick and mortar stores. So we'll see if there's an uptick in people spending or expanding their marketing budget. So that might be interesting on Facebook to see. And we have to see how the reopening goes. So that could be interesting heading into next earnings. But they just have a lot of things, a lot of questions that I think people are watching. And Instagram, it's just with so many people home, there's probably a lot more eyes, a lot more people online for more hours. And Facebook and Instagram may be one of those places where people are spending a ton of that time. So we'll see. Oh, let me give you these numbers. I'm ready to run on. So to the downside, the 208s, this area right here is 203. Below that, we have the 198, then the 191-ish area. Above where we currently are, we want to watch the 214s, the 218s, the 219s, 222s, and then we'll see if we can get a nice little run, a little pop above that area. Let's keep it moving. So I believe overseas that Apple may be opening back up stores, and we'll see how that goes. But look at the strength here in this push up that we are seeing. So here we see this gap separation here right around the 303 area. So the interesting portion of with this is when we're above this, back test push, right? And this is the 303s. And here we just gapped through it, couldn't get back above it. Back test the weakness, back test the sellers of control, driving us down. And here, nice little flare up, but we couldn't really get into that area. But here we're buying up through that area with strength, right? So this upper segment above the 303, when you watch this gap close, we want to see what happens. Will this reject? Will there be strength through this area? And will we catch a bid above these three? It's like the 312 area. We will catch a bid above this 312 area, and we'll get like an elevator up to the top of this little this candle structure here, up into the 320s. That might be interesting. So above where we currently are, watch the 312s, the 318s, and the 328s. Below this area, watch the 308s, the three. Even though I don't have a line here, watch these 303s. Below that, the 295s, 294s, 284s, 277s. Watch the overall market for trend. We are potentially going to run up, maybe strong. Just keep an eye on the futures when they open and see how strong we are. That may be a leading indicator of what to expect going into Monday. We'll see if we either gap up, gap down, or stay flat. But keep an eye on that heading into Monday as we look at some of these setups where we're seeing so much strength and so much bullish action, like pushing up into this gap. We'll see if that closes. We'll see how the sellers react at this level. around those 312s. And if they try to gap us through that area to remove all doubt and give us strength into the next level, into the 318. So that's definitely an interesting watch heading into next week. Tesla, also interesting. And one of the interesting things about Tesla is if we look at the structure here from the 713 area, right? 713s, we're pushing up and we're near the 820s. 713s pushing back up. Now we're through the 820s, back to the 820s. We're dropping down, back below. But this seems to be a nice little potential escalator above the 713s when you catch a bid, that we do see a squeeze into the 780s and potentially the 819, 820 area. So right now we're at the 820 area. Will we see strength above the 820s, or will we get a retrace maybe to the 785s or the 713s? So we're going to be watching for that. I believe Elon over the weekend did tweet something that he is really frustrated with California and made a threat of moving to Texas. Not sure what type of turbulence that may cause. That's a big move. It's very interesting. Elon has been Mr. Twitter fingers, so we'll see how the market may react to that. So I'd be careful with Tesla. You could get sharp swings either direction, but as China is really opening back up and things are opening back up everywhere, I believe even Disney is mentioning their Shanghai. Is it Shanghai? But their China theme parks reopening. Keep an eye on those things because Tesla does have a factory in China. So there is a lot of interesting news coming out. We have to see sort of how the market reacts to the tweets about potentially moving a factory. That's interesting. So we'll see. So to the upside from where we are currently, I would be watching the 857 to the 937 to the 969s. To the downside, the 785-ish area. Below that, the 713s. And we're currently right around those 820s. That's a very interesting area. So we'll have to see how the market reacts to the potential news of Tesla closing down those California operations. Very interesting. Potentially closing, because it's a tweet. So for Elon, it might just be a threat to get a some sort of a reaction or movement in California on reopening and get everything rolling with that factory. Next up is Shop. So if we watch this little upper wick here on Shop, we do see there's a slight disagreement between the buyers and the sellers here. Back test here, push up here. We see wick here, wick here, wick here. Now we're pushing. We'll see if we pull back into these 665. That's what this is here. Or if we could see strength to the upside. But if we pull back into these 665, see if we catch a bid and a bounce. Or if we roll through this area, we see this, all these upper wicks. Let me broaden this out so this is clear. We see all these little wicks here, all this candle action here. So we have to see. This does look a little interesting. Pull back, pull back. Will we see strength above this? Will we see a leak? And we'll see. I don't have a clear direction I'm going to choose on Shop. I'm just going to watch carefully, right? Earnings just came out. We'll see if there is any type of a liquidation break and then buyers step in. We'll see. But you never know with Momo stocks. People could just want to rip this higher and want to put this on a run. So I'm watching the levels here. Will we pull back to the 665? Will we pull back lower to the 590s? Will we hold above or hold in these 600s and catch a bid here and run? Will we pop the top through the 739 area? We'll see. So I'll be watching. If Shop makes new all-time highs, I will probably be trying to hop in on those little pullbacks and probably on some low risk option strategies, but I'll definitely be keeping an eye on shop. CMG. So CMG, what we said was we really want to watch these 850s because they're just interesting. Here couldn't get through. Here we finally broke through consolidation pop, back to that consolidation pop, and back to it again, pop, and here we gap down, drop back into it again, pushed through it with strength, held. Now we're trying to separate to the upside. We have to see what we do around these 900s. Could be really interesting on CMG. So keep an eye on CMG to see if we're going to make new highs, and if we're going to run here. CMG could be really, really interesting as things begin to open back up. So we are above those 850s that we mentioned. That's our swing door area, quote unquote. The area where we could either down or up. And so far, it's been a swing up here. So that's beautiful. So the price points that we want to watch those 940 tops. See, we hold above these 916s, and you have the 890s, then the 863, the 850 area, all in there. And we'll see how this goes headed into next week, and see if the overall market is going to be bullish or if the overall market is going to be bearish. We'll see. So REGN is interesting. Let's see. Okay, cool. We have these areas here. You could almost include that in there because roughly the same area. But we are up above those 500s. And what we've seen here is strength up into these 569s. Then we've seen, this is just recently, right? We've seen that we haven't had the buyers haven't had the courage to drive us through this area. The sellers have been in control. We're back here again. We pull back. We held these 505s, this area, potentially kind of this area. Bought back up, leak. See right after earnings. We're still back up in this area. So will we see a pop above these 560s? So if you're watching this, watch for bullish action above the 569, then target the 591, 606 area. And above that, we can go. Just no ceilings. And to the downside, I would be watching the 543, 525. Then below that, the 505 area. I have a mini little channels thing here that I drew in here so I keep a really close eye on this area to see what the buyers and sellers are doing as they move around in this little zone here. So I think this is really interesting. GOOS is interesting if we stay above this area, which is the 2037 by the 2232. It looks like once we got above this area that we're chopping around in, tried to catch a bid and push us through this consolidation here. But so far, the seller said no, we're back down here. So we'll see if we hold above this. If we dip below this, it could get interesting. That's if I guess we begin to sell again. But GOOS is a solid company. So we'll see if we catch a little bit of strength off of this area and rock it up. Above, we had 2419s to 2610s, which looked like they were an issue here as we drove up near that area. So we'll see how that works out. Just keeping an eye on GOOS. I liked GOOS down here. I thought that it was way undervalued down here. And up here, we'll see. It's almost double this down here. So we'll see what happens with GOOS. What we mentioned on GOOS is one of those companies that have a strong, the Chinese market has a strong effect on GOOS. but it's a solid brand. I'm slightly surprised. I'm not sure of all the numbers, but slightly surprised that there weren't um, other companies that were interested in Goose down here at this price. But it's interesting as far as maybe a takeover. But that's way outside my realm of technical analysis. And earnings is coming up on the 27th of May, so this may be interesting. So I will be keeping an eye on Goose. Goldman Sachs. So what we mentioned about Goldman Sachs is watch this area here. It's an area that we in the past have spent, considerable time. That 189 by 207 area, and we did push up into it. Oxygen got thin, came back down, and now we're sort of pushing back up. If we hold in this area, then I will be interested in a potential channel play up into the 207s, but it just depends on the overall strength. I mean, banks are under just severe pressure right now with what's going on in the economy, and also with, I can't remember the exact number, if it's 8% or more of mortgages that are in forbearance, meaning people just can't pay their mortgages, or they have the money, but they're more worried about food and healthcare and those types of things rather than paying their mortgages. So this will be interesting. This is a different situation than the 2008 crisis, because that situation was primarily financial based. The crap storm that caused the crash was primarily financial based. So the effect was really heavy in the housing sector. This is more of it's a pandemic. It's more health related, but the economic fallout from the shutdown is what's causing the devastation. But if states begin to open back up and people get back to work and they begin to sort of pay their mortgages and get things rolling again, this could get interesting, especially if there are a few more stimulus packages to sort of help some of those people make up for some of those missed checks from work. It could sort of grease the skids a little bit. So we'll see how all this works out. But I would keep an eye on the financials, and we'll see what Goldman Sachs does if we see strength up into these 189s and strength beyond that, or if we push into this area or even touch this area and then it's weakness and we roll back over. But this was an interesting week for financials. The did try to catch a bid, but we'll see if that continues going into the upcoming week. And now we look at the SPY. Watching the SPY, what I would be watching, let's see. We see all this, and then we see this. So what I would want on the SPY, come back this way. Why am I having these issues? Haha. Is we want to get up over these 296.70s. So we want this to pop, right? And we want to get up into this structure here, right around the, what's this, the 294s, the 294 area. We want to get up into this area, and we don't want this to happen. We want to get up into this area, and we want to squeeze up into the 302s, and then an elevator at least up into the 307, maybe the 315s. That's what we want to happen if you're bullish. If you're bearish, you want the sellers to smack this thing back down and potentially retest those 285s. So this will be interesting on SPY headed into next week. We seem to have a bullish lean to the market with all these different states reopening. We'll see how that plays out. But I'll be watching this to see if the buyers can advance us above these 296s and squeeze us into the 302s, 307s, or 315s, or if the sellers take control, slap us back down, and we begin to sell here. So we'll see. Thank you for your time. If you like this video, Please don't hesitate to tap that like button. And also subscribe to our channel, Power of Pivots, where you can look forward to receiving not just content from me, but content from Elisa as she shares how she utilizes her Power of Pivot script to get great intraday plays, plays on futures, plays on, I would say, penny stocks. She's great at those. And just other setups, swing plays that she likes to play. Thank you so much for your time. Stay safe and have a wonderful week of trading.